Albert Einstein famously once quipped, "Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is the definition of crazy." Well, I've come to understand that's not really accurate. Doing the same thing over and over and over again and still expecting a different result is normal. Yeah. That's where potential comes in, how we go about manifesting our potential, what organization that potential takes. Because ultimately, in quantum mechanics, reality is seen as potential, not things out there. The observer of that potential is what brings forth that form. Now, if you get that, you start saying, wow, somehow I need to wake up this observing part of myself so that I can see a different potential living within me and then reorganizing it. Because the truth is, first time around, you didn't have anything to say about the way your brain organized the potential that you exist as into a person, into a construction called self. Now, what happens though, and this is where it gets really interesting, is that the brain is really interested in your survival in the short term. And what it's really wanting is it's going to take whatever's there and it's going to find out something that works. And it doesn't matter how it works. You know, in addictions, what the brain finds is an outside chemical agent that works to make you feel better for a while that has very detrimental long-term effects. The brain, in the way it creates habits, really doesn't care. It doesn't even see that. And that is what happens to us and our potential. Fundamentally, we get born into this world just absolutely with open potential. And then that brain is busy adapting us to the world that we live in, going to have to survive in. And what it's doing is it's ensuring short-term survival. It organizes that, and there's a cost to that. Okay? First, understand, is the original pattern turned into habit, that habit creating you, was good in that it allowed you to survive. Later, it became a dungeon that you got locked into. Let me explain. I grew up in a very profoundly alcoholic home, and my mother was also bipolar, undiagnosed, unmedicated, except by alcohol. And my house, our home, was chaotic. It was crazy making. What you could be assured that no matter what happened, something crazy was going to happen and you were going to experience powerlessness no matter what you did. Now, my brain adapts me to survive in that in a way that I get used to chaos as normal. Okay? I began to operate in uncertainty and these massive challenges of powerlessness really well. I became a superhuman hero just about. My nickname in high school was Man Mountain, okay, to give you an idea. Not anymore. However, what I want you to see is the brain is adapting me into pattern that turns into habit that allows me to survive a particular environment. Now, what happens when you take the boy off the farm? The farm still goes with the boy. As I'm growing up, what I notice is a pattern, is that if there is not chaos around me, then what I'm going to do is create chaos so that I'm in familiar pattern again. That's what I did on a number of occasions as an adult, even as a therapist running a school for kids who could not be maintained in public school due to mental illness. It was chaos all the time. I was a pig in slop. There was no way to control the craziness going on, and I was the superhuman hero. I was Man Mountain. I was taking care of everything. It's about that time I started noticing, whoa, I have a pattern here that I need to start really changing. Somewhere in here, understand the way the brain works. The brain is only looking for short-term success so that you live another day, live another moment. It's not interested in your long-term thriving. Okay? And like with me, my brain did me a great job. It allowed me to survive childhood and adolescence in a way that other people in my family didn't do so well with. At the same time, though, it locked me in to patterns, to life patterns, to habits that were built that started defining my destiny, the way I interacted in the world. And again, for me, is that if chaos weren't there, I was going to create chaos. So, what I want you to recognize here is this, is that the brain is going to create habit. Once that habit is established, that habit starts creating your responses to the world, to the challenges that you engage. And that's what we would loosely call your destiny. Now, what we really want to take a look at is understanding emotion and how emotion builds pattern. Fundamentally, an emotion is not what you think it is. It is not psychological. It actually is biological. And in neuroscience, it's called a biological action potential. Its job is to coordinate activity between the organism, that's you, and the environment. Whatever environment that is, whether or not it's corporate, whether or not it's the woods, the family, whatever. Its job is to produce success there. And once it finds a successful solution through the reward systems, the biological reward systems, it locks in a pattern that produces that safety. Okay? Then anytime that kind of response shows up in the environment, automatically emotional responses happen. When they get successful, those neurons fire together, they wire together, and then become hot-wired. They become automatic. So a lot of people, like for instance with me, when talking about how I would blow up things as an adult, okay? I had numerous really wonderful things happen. I would grow things really great, and then I would blow them up. I would sabotage them. And this is a repeating pattern into my 30s. And then what happened is I began to say, well, something, I need to quit blaming other things about this. I need to start looking at this and saying, something, there's a pattern going on. And at the very bottom of that pattern, here it is how I learned to believe that I could cope, manage the challenges of living, of uncertainty. Now, I'm from the trading world originally. And what happened is we took a look at that trading account, and what we really saw is that trading account as the beliefs that you're projecting onto the markets. And the thing is, the health of the trading account is telling you whether or not those beliefs are effective at being able to extract more capital out of the markets than you give back. And if you're extracting a lot of, you have highly effective beliefs about the ability to manage uncertainty. Now that's on a very powerful quantum level compared to what looks like big objects out here in the world you and I live in, but it's not. Those patterns that we both inherited from our caveman ancestors, remember, caveman really wanted to survive, and it had to control outcome, okay? It did not want to lose because losing to it meant death, and it wanted to be able to control and predict pattern. It was very good at that, and it allowed us to live and prosper and to grow into the human beings that we are today. However, most of us no longer live in a world with lions, tigers, and bears where, danger really truly meant biological threat. Today, danger usually means something like, oh my gosh, my fragile ego is being tempted here. It's being confronted, okay? We don't have lions, tigers, and bears here. But at the same time, we have challenges that happen, and it's those challenges that now are still heard by that caveman brain of yours as threats. Now, do you attack them or do you avoid them? But these are patterns that have been set up since the beginning. The job here is you have to decide, okay, I need to start spotting the patterns. And guess what? At first, they're really hard. Why? Because they're so familiar. They're so common to you. They're ubiquitous to you. You can't see them. They're normal. It's just like, for me, when I was creating chaos, when everything was going fine, because that's what I was used to, I could not comprehend why. And yet I kept looking at the pattern. I'm going, it's pretty obvious here once you step back and look at it that I had fallen into a pattern a long time ago in a place far, far away, and that pattern helped me to survive. Then that pattern got all grown up, and all of a sudden it was creating chaos. It blew up a marriage, it blew up a business, it did all sorts of things like that until I started saying, I need to find out what's behind this pattern I keep doing. I'm not crazy, like Einstein was saying. The truth is, I'm normal. I'm just like everybody else. That pattern had locked in, and what I needed to do was to learn how to unlock that pattern so that as an observer, I could start taking the potential that I exist and you exist as and organize it into higher functioning. Honest, really powerful. And what I want you to notice is, what are the patterns going on in your life that you can spot and say, something, this keeps happening, and it's really getting to become a nuisance. It's not allowing me to move to the next level. First, we have to spot that before we can ever begin to say, how do we go about changing this pattern into a better organization of my potential, becoming a new pattern, becoming a new habit that basically becomes just automatic for me, automatically familiar, habitual, and creates my life without my even noticing it. That's what your pattern's already doing. What I'm asking of you is to recognize that you can take it off automatic. We're human beings, really cool stuff. And we can become designer of the potential that's organized into a self called us that engages the challenges of our lives, of living, of uncertainty. Friends, that's the voyage that I'm inviting you to look at, is to become designer of those patterns, those habits that create us. And the first place you look is at the beliefs that lie behind those emotional patterns. I'm going to give you a hint. They really boil down to just a couple. Do I matter? Most of the alphas who have made a lot of money that I've met and worked with, they want to make a lot of money in order to matter. The money itself is not that important. Having the money to prove that you're big, tough, and strong, and you have status and you have power, that's what's important. Caveman brain stuff. The other is deserving. I've worked with people who kept failing and they could never understand why until they discovered they didn't feel as though they really, at a deep level, deserve to succeed at that level. And that belief, because it was unseen, unobserved, kept infesting and just blowing up the new patterns the person was starting. The last one is adequacy. Am I good enough? Do I have what it takes to be able to go out and engage the uncertainties of living, the challenges of living, and actually surf that? The thing is that in this work, what you're learning is that willpower, toughness, has very little to do with success of self-mastery. What really matters is not controlling the outcome. What matters is learning to control the organization of self, the mind that you bring to engage the uncertainties, the possibilities of life. That's what counts. Come and learn, friends. Come and learn. Come to my website, read my book, start looking and start saying, something, it's making sense now. I can see how I got locked into pattern that limited who I could be as a possibility. Yeah, my potential shrank because my brain is not in the 21st century. It's back there 6.5 million years ago to 50 million years ago. It needs help, friends. You need to learn the skill sets to be able to accomplish that. Come and learn.